Hello, and welcome to another video. And today I'm going to be covering the events of July 18th. So let's get right into it. So we're going to start, of course, as always, in the Kherson region. And today, the major event in here was that Ukrainian artillery struck the Kakhovka hydroelectric power station, which is probably located in Kakhovka, given its name, around here. And in the same city, Kakhovka, there was also an explosion of an ammo depot that Russia has control over. So we are seeing the continued use of the MLRS by Ukraine to attack these Russian installations along the Dnieper River, um, uh, in the Kherson region especially. That's the most prominent oblast where we're seeing these strikes on. But besides that, in Kherson, we're also seeing that Ukraine is starting to send some more units towards the front line in Mykolaiv. So, for instance, the 17th Brigade that's training in Kryvyi, they have a platoon of tanks, which is now being transferred to the Mykolaiv region, where it will be fighting on the front lines. And additionally, a lot of the equipment that was used in the Snake Island campaign is now being shifted to the Kherson front. Ukraine will start using those all of that equipment on the front lines over there. We're also seeing that Ukraine is sort of like launching these pontoon bridges to cross the Inhulets River. I'm not sure if it was here. It might have been a different part of the Inhulets River, but this is one area where they could have crossed over, or at least attempted to. But right now there's fighting um, going on along the river, especially around here in this pocket of Ukrainian control over Kherson. And besides that, there's not much. It's just like Russia launching mortars and artillery, and then Ukraine launching counter artillery. And something interesting to note is that there were reports of very high Ukrainian casualties due to these shellings, and that a lot of the wounded are being sent to this town over here, Apostolove, and specifically they're being shifted to like medical centers, these impromptu medical tents or whatever, through like the rail station over here. So yeah, it's pretty rough for both sides over here. I don't expect an offensive. I've talked about this at length in previous videos. So yeah, let's just move on to some of the other strikes that were observed today. I just want to say that, for instance, in the Venezia strike, there are three high-ranking officers in the Ukrainian Air Force that their obituaries were just posted, and they were victims of the strike on the center in Venezia, which was attacked. So that basically confirms that it was a military target. There have been so many troops that have been recorded as dead in Venezia. So yeah, it was a military target. There were also strikes from Russia specifically. They struck Poltava today, which is a pretty major city. They struck Toretsk, which I think is in it's in the Donetsk region. I'm gonna see if I could find it. But yeah, this city over here was struck, which is pretty close to the front line. We also struck a strike on Kramatorsk over here, and we saw a strike on the industrial area of Odessa. And we don't really know what was struck here. I think we'll see tomorrow morning when Russia announces its like a briefing about all the most recent strikes that they've launched, and they've been doing that for a while now. So we'll see what they struck there. But yeah, strikes on Odessa are also becoming a daily occurrence. There was also, of course, strikes on Mykolaiv. But yeah, let's move on to the important frontier of Avdiivka. So we haven't seen many changes east of Avdiivka itself, but we have seen reports of heavy fighting in this town called Novobakhmutivka, and at least according to the live UA map, Russia is sort of like flanking this town from the south and from the north. So it is possible that Ukraine just like abandons this position because it is on the eastern side of this road, which Russia already has control over part of it. The road that leads from Donetsk to this city here, Kostiantynivka. So we will see if the scenario that plays out turns out to be like where Russia secures control of the eastern part of this road, and they have this like bridgehead to attack Avdiivka with full force from here. And here's the problem with Avdiivka. It's a very heavily fortified, as I've said before, but also it's located around areas of especially high terrain. You see like a really high terrain around here specifically. All around these areas, you have very high terrain, which makes bypassing the trenches that were built over the past 8 years very difficult. You also see pretty like large bodies of water, and everything's mined to a T. So yeah, it is very difficult to surpass these defensive positions, which is understandable. So we'll see if Russia's intention is basically to like outflank them from the north by attacking this town over here, and then in the future they can sort of use this position as like a springboard on Kostiantynivka itself. So yeah, now let's go on to the fighting around Seversk and Solidar. So yeah, I don't have anything to say specifically about Solidar. Russia is still not in the city, so I don't want to talk about. I don't want to spend too much time there. But I do want to say that Ukraine's counter artillery, they've been striking at Novokamyanka and Stryapivka. So like that should put to rest any doubts that people had that these towns are under the control of the Russian forces. That's a given. And the same thing happened in Klinove. So everybody just has to admit that those are under Russian control based on Russia being shelled in those towns. We're also seeing that Russia shelled like these towns like Vesela Dolina, Itseve, Tema, Semihirja. Yeah, all these towns they're being shelled, especially Solidar. So we're just seeing shelling on this front. We're not necessarily seeing any advances just yet. And around here, we are seeing like fighting within Berestove itself, around the road area, and then we're also seeing heavy clashes around the Suka Pladva River and Bilohorivka. So you have Russian forces maybe like approaching the road itself. They're not actually fully in control of Bilohorivka, but it would be a good victory for them. It would be a good town to secure before they can then sort of advance further, which is why Ukraine has built this second like um, line of defense, which will have to sort of give up on Seversk, but not necessarily on the rest of Donbass or the rest of like Bakhmut and Solidar and all of that. So you could have a scenario like this where Ukraine retreats back from Solidar towards this road. I could see that as a possibility. And then based on what happens in about Bakhmut, it would be like this or like this. But either way, there were reports from the LPR that they had control of Seversk, and there were like conflicting reports from other pro-Russian sources. Like some were saying that they had operational control or fire control, and then you had some other sources saying that actually the opposite was true, and that it's that Russia it was in no way in control of Seversk. That is not what happened. And then the actual thing that happened on this front is that the Ukrainians, they pushed the Russians back from Krikivka and Verkhnokamianske, and now the front lines around the Donetsk-Lugansk territorial line. I don't know what to believe. I see it as more likely that the front line hasn't changed much and that it's still around here, because you can't attack Seversk head on. That's the problem. That's not possible at the moment, because basically you have all these areas of high ground around here that I'm highlighting right now. This is all high ground. If you go into the city, gung ho, guns blazing, and you're just like surrounded from all sides by like Ukrainian forces on higher elevation. They're just gonna like rain hell down on you. So why would you go in? It's basically a trap. So what I think what will and should happen if Russia wants to actually take over is that they surpass Serbyanka, maybe even cross from Dronivka, and then from there you go to the heights and then take those over first, and then from there you cut off Seversk and attack it head on. But we haven't really seen this come into fruition just yet, which might indicate that Russia isn't ready yet to actually launch this attack. So there were talks about like the Russian operational pause ending, and that like within the next 72 hours. And now 72 hours have passed, and we don't really see that anything has changed. Maybe tomorrow something will change, but I'm skeptical of that. One last thing in this area is that a Russian Su-34 was shot down in Alchevsk, and it was actually done by Russia's own air defense system. So we don't know the fate of the soldier that, like the pilot. But yeah, that's a pretty big failure for them. I also want to say that in Bakhmut, as I was talking about yesterday, basically it's getting incredibly fortified. You're having shipments from trains coming into the city, and they're like setting up all this concrete and all these like heavy materials like that are going to be used as barricades. And the interesting thing is that now there are like a lot of civilians that are starting to get mobilized from Kostiantynivka, and they're being sent to Bakhmut. They're being trained, sent to Bakhmut. The town itself is getting heavily fortified, which is interesting. So we'll see if Ukraine actually stays in Bakhmut or if they leave. All these signs point to the fact that they will stay. Interestingly, the 24th and 57th Infantry Brigades in the armed forces of Ukraine, they suffered heavy losses on this front around Bakhmut, Solidar, all of this area. And now they're getting restaffed, and they'll be sent back into the front line in the near future. So yeah, that's really it for the Donbass. And now I'm going to talk about some more miscellaneous stuff. So there was a report that Russia was starting to move some of their ships, some of their naval assets away from Sevastopol, which is around here, and they're moving them towards Novorossiysk. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing that, but yeah, they're moving the ships away from the Crimean Peninsula, where it would be exposed to the MLRS fire that Ukraine may actually use on Crimea, and they're moving them to these more safe locations that are away from the front lines. Maybe that shows that they are preparing for the worst case scenario, or that they're expecting this scenario to actually come to fruition. But the thing is, these MLRS systems, they're not invincible. Like the same thing happened with the Caesar howitzers, or like the M triple sevens. Like they all got destroyed eventually. Like now there are videos that I've seen of like captured M777s, and yeah, you can see the same thing happening with the HIMARS. You can see the HIMARS getting destroyed. It's happened before, and it's gonna happen again. And that would be if I was in the Russian chain of command, that would be one of my main targets at the moment. I would want to get rid of these um, systems as quick as possible, just to restore operational efficacy. Now, I want to talk about more of the gas side of things. So, um, now Gazprom is basically shutting off supplies to Europe and especially Germany because they're basically voiding their contractual obligations under the Nord Stream 1 like agreement that was made between Russia and Germany. So now what we're seeing is Gazprom, they're no longer going to be shipping gas to Germany through the Nord Stream 1 pipeline. It's a major failure for Germany. They're going to suffer greatly because of this decision. And we're going to see the response from the rest of the Western world. But um, yeah, it's a very precarious situation for Germany.